Have you ever checked your Zestimate and thought, wow, I'm rich? Then you refresh the screen and suddenly you're $40,000 poorer? Same, my friend, same. Today, I'm going to be sharing my personal ups and downs with the Zestimate and how it can help you or hurt you depending on how you use it. Have you ever been shocked by your home's Zestimate? Did it seem way off? Let's hear the story. So let's talk about the Zestimate. What is it really? A Zestimate is Zillow's estimate of a home's value based on the algorithm that pulls information like recent sales, public records, and even market trends. Sounds like an easy way to get an idea of value, right? But here's what Zillow misses. Zillow doesn't take into consideration your improvements or upgrades that have been completed since you purchased the property. It also doesn't take into consideration how well the home shows or doesn't show and the overall flow of the property. And sometimes I see where it mistakenly uses comparables from a neighborhood that's not comparable, like an age-restricted community versus non-age restricted, or guard-gated versus non-guard-gated community. Also, it may not take into consideration recent market changes. Our Las Vegas market changes quickly here. I've seen multiple offers in 1 month and no showings the next. In real estate, it can take several months before a trend is statistically reported. And here's why. When prices are declining and values are going down, what we see is homes sit on the market a little bit longer. You'll see days on the market increase and prices continue to go down. It can take several months before those same properties get into escrow and finally close. Well, once they close escrow, then we start seeing the sales and we start seeing the average sales price decline. But in the meantime, that could take months while the prices reduce until those homes actually close. In markets where I see that values are declining, the Zestimate may be way too high because it hasn't reflected those closings yet. When the market's increasing, I find the Zestimate's not bad. It's pretty close and maybe even a little low, but in a declining market, the Zestimate is often way too high. It's kind of like that friend we all have that exaggerates a little bit. It gives you a ballpark idea, but when you really want to know what the value is, it's best to talk to someone that has seen the inside, knows the neighborhood and current trends in the market, like your local realtor. Here's why I hate the Zestimate. When I have a home that I'm going on a listing appointment for and I see the Zestimate is way higher than I'm going to recommend. In fact, I have a property right now that's under contract. When I pulled this estimate when I met with her, it was over $611,000, but there's a model match in escrow for $550,000. That same property had started at $600,000, had continued to reduce and got to $550,000 before it went under contract. It hasn't closed yet, so some of that has not been statistically reported yet. I told the seller I would recommend probably listing around the $550,000. Her home was slightly nicer, so I said probably range $550,000 to $590,000 at the highest. Of course, she wanted to list right where the Zestimate was, around $610,000. We finally agreed on $689,000. And sure enough, the moment the home went on the market, the Zestimate went down to $581,000, basically slightly under our list price and a $30,000 drop in 1 day. Now, I did prepare her. The $590,000 was a little high and it did cause some problems. We didn't even get showings for a couple of weeks. It definitely slowed the process down. And it was hard to set correct expectations after she had that price in mind. Often when I meet with sellers and they see that Zestimate, they really want to try to list high and leave room for negotiations. I hear that all the time in this market. The problem is in a declining market like ours, that can really hurt you. So when values are appreciating and you price high, it's really not that bad. You price here, values are here, but you reduce, values are appreciating, you reduce, you meet somewhere in the middle. Time is kind of on your side in an appreciating market, but it's the exact opposite in a declining market. In a declining market, you price high, okay, values are here, you reduce, but so has the market and everybody else has already reduced and values have gone down. You end up chasing the market and statistically you end up reducing 2 more times and selling for far less than if you had just priced right from the beginning. So it's so important to truly understand what the market is and if it makes sense to price high or not, depending on what's currently happening in our market. Would you trust a robot to price your biggest investment? Why or why not? Let's hear it. Hey there, welcome to my channel. I'm Leslie Carver, your expert guide in all things real estate, especially if you're eyeing Henderson. I'm here to share tips, insights, and all the latest market updates to help you navigate the real estate market in Henderson and Las Vegas. Don't forget to hit like, smash that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you don't miss any new videos. Let's jump back into it. Now, the love side of the Zestimate. There's times when I absolutely love the Zestimate. I currently am working with buyers, and they had been really looking on Zillow, kind of narrowing down the price range and different areas in town. They had a really good idea of kind of where they wanted to be and what price they wanted to spend even before meeting with me. Once we met, I set up a more specific and timely search directly from our MLS. That way I get notified and the buyers get notified the minute a new home comes on the market that fits their criteria. The Zestimate's great for a ballpark idea and starting the conversation. I even like looking at Zillow and the Zestimates when I'm out of town to get an idea of what's happening in that market and values. I'm not serious or truly looking to buy, but it just gives me a good idea of general values. Rather than relying on the Zestimate, here's what I recommend. I like to say I'm in the trenches. I often see market shifts early. I make it my priority to study the market and know what's happening locally. Currently, we are seeing a lot of high-end homes still sell, but many homes in the lower price ranges are sitting a little bit longer and prices are declining. You want to know what's happening hyper-local to your home, the Las Vegas market, your specific price range, and even within your neighborhood. I run a full market analysis when I meet with clients. That includes recent comparable sales, market data, buyer demand, and even expectations on what to expect for appraisal values. When I run a market analysis, I do look at the recent solds and I go over those with my clients, but I more so focus on what's currently available and the competition for that specific home. If there's a lot of other comparable homes on the market, then there's a lot of supply and competition, so you're going to want to price a little bit lower and more aggressively. If there aren't a lot of comparable homes for that specific property, then you might be okay listing a little bit higher than some of the recent solds. The current available inventory will give you a much better idea of what's currently happening in our market. In most price ranges right now, we are seeing homes sit a little bit longer and prices decrease. So it's so important that you do everything possible to make sure your home is sold. And that includes pricing right, showing well, and being marketed well. The Zestimate is kind of like guessing someone's age from across the street. Close, but definitely not accurate. What's the biggest Zestimate surprise you've seen? High or low? Love to hear those stories. So here's the bottom line. As a seller, don't base your list price solely on the Zestimate. It's a helpful tool, but definitely not the full picture. Talk to your agent. Hopefully that's me. And let's walk through the differences so you can price your home smartly. It's always a good idea to keep your eye on trends, but most importantly, use data from multiple sources and get expert guidance. For buyers, the Zestimate's a fun starting point. It gives you a general idea of prices and the market, but verify those comps with boots on the ground expertise. I'm not exactly sure why I seem to be using military metaphors, but I am in the trenches and I do have boots on the ground here in our local Las Vegas market. There's no substitute for actually being out there and seeing the home firsthand. That's how you really get the story behind the numbers. So yes, I do love the Zestimate for giving us a starting point, but I hate how often it's taken as gospel. The key is knowing when to trust it and when to call your local real estate agent. If you're curious about your home's value, give me a call. I'd love to prepare a custom market analysis for you and your property. Looking for more real estate insights about Las Vegas and Henderson? Just check out one of my other videos popping up on your screen. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you on the next one.